What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Play the Fight Song podcast, a college football podcast for college football fans. True ones, not those fake ones that are checked out for bowl season, not the opt-outs for the bowl games, the true college football fan. We are in bowl season. It is an action-packed episode. We are going to take you through a few things. The transfer portal is wide open, lit up, and there are some big names going big places. We're going to cover those first. Then we're going to take you through some bowl game memories, some bowl game previews, and of course, we have to give you our bowl game matchup, underrated style of the year. The boys are all here. Let's go around and talk to them. Jake, mentioning the wild card Colts in the NFL. I mean, we don't really condone the NFL here, Jake, but talk about the Colts.
Really? I get it. Do I get my 10 seconds of light
Yeah,
for
you
the
get your
Colts?
10 seconds of the Colts. We got to get it out of the way.
I mean, to be in this position without our starting quarterback has been nothing but sensational. Shane Steichen might be the greatest coach of all time. The coaching job he's done so far is amazing. I love how I've been missing some football in my life. We had like college football that's been absent for a little bit, even though we had Army Navy last week. I get a substitute for the Colts playing on Saturday, a huge implication for playoff games. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a great substitute for, I guess we're throwing it on top of bowl games. So I get that and bowl games. So I can't complain right now.
Yeah, but you got to put the bowl games above it. This is a college football brand. And then we got to talk to JP. JP, get into him a little bit. This is a college football podcast. People are just getting in here.
It's 10 a.m. kickoff. 10 a.m. kickoff for bowl game Saturday. There's not even time for NFL. There's no time slot on my TV. It would be like, right. Are you sure this is what you want to turn on? I'd be like, you're right. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that to you. We're just going to turn on the bowl games, because Jacksonville State is a lot more interesting than the Colts in their horrible division they play in. But that's just me.
Especially when you have an absolute banger, largest Southern and Ohio leading off the bowl season, which we're going to preview later. Reese is also here. You heard him a little bit earlier. He is the very best, like no one ever was.
He's going to be the very best.
I hope people get that
no
reference.
One ever was.
I don't want to be your friend, anyone.
It's playing in the background. They didn't. So
I was going to say, I can't believe Shaver is this excited. Usually after his team gets housed, he's like down for a little bit. I mean, the Colts just kind of got their shit pumped by Cincinnati.
That was a very predictable game. That was exactly what I thought was going to happen.
Kid's a wizard. He can predict any time his team's going to lose.
That's true. Jake, you're like a new man. It's a new year. It's a new Jake. Like he doesn't get down bad when the Colts lose consistently as they have.
We could talk about this a little bit. I guess, I don't know. You guys have teams, obviously, in the NFL. I don't know how much, if you watch every Sunday or not, but losses in college football seem way more detrimental than a loss in the NFL. Because
100%.
12 games, not 17.
100%.
Well, yeah, but even then, you're still, every game matters in college football for, maybe a college or a conference title or something like that, or division title where, one loss at Cincinnati is not going to. We literally stayed in the same spot for the playoff race. So I feel like I'm not really upset about it at all. I don't really. There are games. It's like
the top teams have 3 losses. Like if you have 3 losses in college football, you're nobody.
Professional sports too. You can't imagine being an MLB fan and getting hung up on a loss.
I would say
Frank the Tank.
But baseball wise, I don't get hung up on the loss as much as I do things that happen in the loss. Well, shit, it's 3 games in a row and we've given up 3 leads 7th inning or later, or we haven't swung the bat in 2 weeks. Yeah. So it's 3-game seasons is how I attack the MLB season. Parks, are you similar? It's 3-game seasons, 4-game seasons, depending on how many you have versus that team, right? Because if you go 2 and 5 on a week, you play every day. That's a rough week. That's not good. And baseball's so streaky.
Yeah, it's just you have to hit a stride at the right time. I think it's after the break you kind of dial into kind of what this team's going to be. But if they lose 4 or 5 in a row, it's not the end of the world. Baseball is very hard. Baseball, hockey, the NBA, it's very hard. Games 1 through 50, it's almost impossible to live or die on the hill of winning or losing. I don't know about the NBA as much, Jake, but it's really hard.
I would say that's probably true. I kind of crossed the threshold though. We're still playing meaningful games for the Colts and going into December, these last 4 weeks. Now, if we start losing these football games, you'll find me in a very upset state.
All right, we need our boy back, so that sounds good to me. All right, let's go into the college football world. Recent news around the college football world. It's a lot of transfer portal. It's a lot of NIL. It's a lot of new collectives coming up with new things. But let's talk about the biggest names and kind of where they ended up so far. There are plenty of names in the portal. I heard there's over 1,800 FBS players actively in the transfer portal right now, and that ranges anywhere. There's 4 stars, there's 5 stars, and all the way down to 0 stars that are going to end up playing probably for South Dakota State or South Dakota. But the big names that we know so far, Sam Leavitt, the 4-star dual threat quarterback from Michigan State who saw 4 games this year, is on his way to Arizona State. And probably the biggest name, though, Dillon Gabriel leaving Oklahoma, where he had a pretty good career, for Oregon, replacing Bo Nix and a powerful offense. Probably going to be the best fit out of all these in my mind. And then Riley Leonard, you finally were awaiting the announcement. He's leaving Duke for Notre Dame. It seems like the absolute perfect fit, especially with the departure of Sam Hartman last night. And then Tyler Van Dyke, the turnover-prone quarterback from Miami, leaves Miami and heads to Wisconsin to play for Luke Fickell and the Badgers. And the last one, kind of a late add-in for us, but Deion Burks from Purdue going to Oklahoma. That's a good weapon on the outside. Those are the 5 biggest names. JP, which of those 5 do you think ended up in the perfect spot? And who do you think will make the biggest impact at their new home?
If you're Dan Lanning, I think you're pretty happy with grabbing Gabriel in this situation, right? Just a distributor. You're not going to get as much of a run threat, although he can use his legs as you had with Nix and what you've had in the past. But I think just a distributor in that offense for a good gap year, hoping that maybe they can get a younger quarterback in the portal or just get young guys in there. Those 4 or 5-star guys they have sitting on campus in Eugene, I think it'd be massive for them. I thought the Deion Burks one was great for Oklahoma too. That's a name from Purdue that, struggled this year because Purdue struggled in most situations throughout the year. He didn't have a guy giving him the football. And now you gave him a chance to go to an offense where, Jackson Arnold's in the waiting. He'll probably be your starter next year. If he's as good as advertised and what he was picked to be for the 24/7 rankings out of high school and what people really like about him in Norman, that Burks kid's going to have a lot of numbers next to his name, I think, next fall. So that's one that I really want people to see. And more appreciation for a guy who came from a situation where Purdue's had success with guys like him. And in this gap year with Walters, it's kind of changed. So he's like, I'll go to Norman, leave West Lafayette. And I think it's a great fit for him.
Yeah, the town transfers are also an interesting point to follow. Like, you're going from West Lafayette, Indiana to Norman, Oklahoma. I don't know if that's the biggest change in the world, but playing in the SEC from the Big Ten seems like the biggest change in the world, and they're going to need to multiply those offensive weapons as they go into the SEC.
Oh, yeah.
Jake, what is the biggest name for you from this list?
I don't know. Yeah, it's probably the biggest name out there right now, but how about Riley Leonard going to Notre Dame? But not just him. I don't know if you guys have been really paying attention, but Notre Dame's had 4 dudes enter the portal from the receiver room. And on
in the tight end room.
Yep. The Haas kid or whatever his name was, he's a top 15 guy out there right now. And they've brought in, I think, 2 or 3 different receivers. So I'm interested to see what the offseason and everything like that, what is Freeman's identity to surround Leonard with? Like, are they going to try to bring in a bunch of stud receivers and make him throw it through the air a bunch and try to get his NFL stock up? Or maybe they're going to use his legs more and they're going to rely on the defense and the run game, kind of like Notre Dame has in the past. But I think you can do either or with Riley Leonard. I think that's just the biggest question and most interesting thing probably you could follow going into the offseason.
Do you know how much of a staple that is to transfer from one smart school to another and just be a bigger name? It feels like
it's easy to predict, does it not? When like kids leave Virginia or they leave Duke or they leave Notre Dame,
yeah,
or
like this guy's going to Notre Dame or Northwestern. Thinking, well, there's no in between.
If he picked this smart of a school out of high school, whether he was talented or not, I bet you he wants to keep that rep up, for maybe the NFL doesn't pan out.
Not only that, but I think it limits the options for Notre Dame. Like, they have to wait for a guy like Riley Leonard coming from Duke to be like, okay, we can go get this guy. Because, I mean, he's coming from Florida A&M. I don't think Notre Dame has the stature to be like, yep, let's go get him. So
exactly,
that's another thing to notice. Those really smart schools, Northwestern, Duke, Notre Dame, they have to wait for smart people to hit the portal. So, Reese, let's talk about Tyler Van Dyke, a guy we haven't mentioned yet, leaving Miami. A little bit turnover prone, older guy. What do you see him doing at Wisconsin, and what do you think about that move?
Well, it's going to be, what is Fickell going to be like with year 2 and Longo? Because they really didn't have as much success this year as I thought they were going to have. but it's what can they actually get their identity to be now with a guy like him, because he can sling it. I mean, he had some great games this year. A&M coming to their place at the beginning of the year, he put up some numbers in that game. So it's a guy who's been around for big games. But I think it's just going to be what are Longo and Fickell going to be able to do with him, and what can they get guys around him to make sure he fits that mold and it's the right spot for him. I think he can be a very successful quarterback up there. Like we were just talking about, he's got to limit the turnovers if Wisconsin wants to have a shot for anything. So
I think
I
that's
agree.
a good point. I think that's a good point too. I think Van Dyke is definitely a fit kind of guy. Like he needs the right pieces around him and he needs the right play calling. I don't think Cristobal was really the best fit for him, being the second coach to come around in his recruitment. So maybe this is the right change that he needs. I think it's the right system that he wants to surround himself with, and he's definitely going to get an opportunity to throw the ball around. That's for sure.
I think Fickell's a guy who we kind of lost an identity from this year. He brings in Tanner Mordecai, who slings the rock like unlike anybody else in the Big Ten, but then you still have Braylon Allen. So next year will be a real kind of test on what identity this Wisconsin team's going to have. Obviously, you get an idea. I mean, Van Dyke can move on the ground and he can throw it. So we'll see what they look like next year.
Yeah, you would hope they find their groove again in the run game offensively on the line and have like Ches Malusi in the backfield too. Like you still have guys. I think he's going to need support. He can't be the reason your offense is clicking. I think he needs to be maybe like 3 or 4 in your talented players on offense. He needs to be the guy that's distributing, not necessarily the guy you're leaning on to win football games.
100%. Okay, let's change the page. Let's go to players in the portal that are still active, looking for homes. We're going to rank our top 5. I think we're going to have some crossover. I would hope so, because there are some massive names still looking for new homes. Let's let JP, you lead it off. Give us your top 5 people. Give us maybe a home where you predict one of them will go, and we'll go around the horn.
Yeah, I went 5 here, and I did a little offense and defense. Actually, my top 2 guys are defensive players. Number 1, it's Walter Nolan for me. I think a lot of people would say that's the same. When you have an interior guy that's already projecting the way he is after 2 years in college, former number 1 player in the 22 class, comes into A&M, immediate impact. He's on a stacked defensive line room this year. They move on from Jimbo. Things change. Kids maybe not jive with the new coaching staff's coming in. So I think maybe it's just he wants to see change, right? He wants to pick who he plays for. And so he's into the portal. I think that's going to be a name that lands at a blue blood program. He's going to stay down south in the SEC, I would assume. Maybe in Oregon might go get him too, because they've been known to go grab those guys on the defensive line. But he seems like he's a guy that wants to play interior in the SEC. Number 2, I have Nyland Green, corner from Georgia. If you're in the portal, and we watched LSU try to do this last year, trying to get corners, let's go get a sure thing in this guy, right? Go get yourself a lockdown corner right away. And a lot of guys swung and missed last year on corners. Like you look at what A&M did in some situations, not all of those hit. You look at LSU, like 0 of those hit, and they took 5 guys in the portal. There's a ton of DB names that have left, like even Iowa, right, that went in their next school. They didn't really hit, or they leave somewhere again. So I think this is a guy you definitely want. And with what we've seen out of the numbers out of the SEC and out of the quarterbacks last couple of years, go get yourself a corner that can shut down half the football field. Number 3, I have Cam Ward. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory, but I think why have him at 3 over Dante Moore is it's more of a proven commodity, right? And we've seen him slow down this year. Kind of later in the year, Washington State started to struggle. I think he just needs to feel like he doesn't have the world on his shoulders. He needs to feel like he has support offensively, defensively, and guys rolling in on weapons on all over the place. Number 4, I have Dante Moore. Dante Moore to me is a guy who's a little more unproven. He got snaps at UCLA this year. It didn't quite go the way he was expecting. And maybe it just wasn't the fit. Like he was originally an Oregon guy, decommitted, decides to go to UCLA, play for Chip Kelly, and it just didn't go for him. And I just think he needs to go somewhere that's going to build him quick, right? He needs to reset headspace, refigure out how he attacks the game. And I think he's a kid that can do it with how highly regarded he is now in this transfer portal and then coming out of high school as well. So I have him at 4. Then 5, I kind of went deeper. I think Rocket Sanders is the best running back in the portal right now. I think he's better than ETN. I think you have a problem with Arkansas with just injuries this year. They couldn't get it going. The offense in general, even with KJ and him, just couldn't find themselves in their footing. That's a guy who's going to be your feature guy wherever he ends up. So I have him at number 5 because I think running backs in college football, unlike the NFL, are a commodity that you want, and you want a guy who's a difference maker. You look at Oklahoma State, what they got with Gordon this year, everything that Braylon Allen did at Wisconsin, and you just kind of going through names, right? So I have him at number 5. I don't know if anybody else has a running back in theirs. I'll be interested to see if they do, but I kind of went deeper cut at 5.
Yeah, hopefully I don't steal anybody, but I don't know what you've seen, JP. I've seen a lot of rumors swirling around Dante Moore as an Ohio State Buckeye. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I have, and it's God, I hate chasing rumors right now in this transfer
Oh, I
portal
love
because
it.
like
That's the
there's a
best part.
zillion and one. There's a zillion and one, and you're like, well, this guy said that, and then but this guy said that. Actually, I'm pretty sure that this guy knows his grandma that worked at the Hardee's in Columbus, and so
Yeah.
like they've already so it's
Source,
but it's
trust
fun
me,
because
bro.
yes, there's always a source that nobody can name or really pinpoint, but it's real, it's factual.
That's 100% correct when it comes to the transfer portal. I think they're a good point here. If you know it, name it. I know one of yours. I know Cam Ward. I saw the sticker price around him going as about $2 million to get Cam Ward in your football program. With that, let's swing up to Jake. Jake, who's your 5?
Yeah, I'm kind of changing on the fly just because I'm changing my criteria a little bit. But the 5 most interesting guys,
Criteria
I would say,
change. We gotta change it up. Completely change it. Switch.
in the portal.
Yep.
I have
Typical shape.
Playoff
number
committee switch it
1.
again.
I got Walter Nolan. I think it's interesting just because, like, if you're the number 1 guy in a class and you're in the portal and you didn't make it work at another school, I mean, it's just so fascinating to see where he's going to go. I lean very heavy as another SEC school, but he's a guy that's worth a lot of money, and he's a huge difference maker on any big Power 5 defensive line. I had Cam Ward in this spot, but I want to change it for Dante Moore because a couple of different things. Number 1, we don't know what we're getting out of Dante Moore. I think he might have a higher upside than Cam Ward. Also, I don't think we're all out of the possibility that Cam Ward might try the NFL. He might not even end up at another school. Dante Moore, we know, needs to land somewhere. And it's more of like, we've seen him a little bit. Now we want to see if this kid was really worth the hype wherever he goes. So he's number 2. JP, I do have a running back, and it's Trevor Etienne at number 3. I personally, I think he is better than Rocket Sanders. At least maybe I think he's more NFL ready than Rocket is. I think he didn't get used enough at Florida. I thought, I don't know, Napier tried to do this 1-2 thing with Montrell Johnson, and I think he can be a huge difference maker wherever he goes. It's looking like Georgia is a big lean for him right now. If he goes to Georgia
fans are salivating because they haven't had a difference maker in that running back room about 2 years now.
I mean, you look at Dejan Edwards, and he was definitely serviceable. Imagine what Etienne could do.
Yeah.
So when I look at that, I think that's super fascinating. And then last 2, this is a little outdated, and he might even commit before this comes out. RJ Oben out of Duke. He's crystal balled at Notre Dame right now, this being Tuesday night, and Monday night he wasn't crystal balled to go anywhere. But I think even though he's on the defensive side of the ball, he's a 2-year starter at the edge position. Maybe the Riley Leonard deal, he's kind of taking him along in his suitcase or something. I think that would be huge for Notre Dame and their outside on the defensive line. And last, I'm going to take DeQuan Finn because really I have no idea where he's going to go. I don't know if he's a number 1 quarterback option depending on where he goes.
You know what he screams to me?
He
screams Big Ten West quarterback.
So, yes, but the Tyler Van Dyke news is also recent, but the article I read on Sports Illustrated last night was that his top 3 odds in Vegas are Michigan, Ohio State, and it was Wisconsin. Obviously, I believe that would change. And I think
those are super high. That's a high program for what I thought he would get. Like I would think more like a Purdue or an Indiana.
That's what I'm saying. Like I don't know if he's definitely not automatically a starter to me if he walks on campus, no matter who. I think even at Ohio State with Lincoln Keyholtz and Spencer,
the answer is he's not an auto starter at those schools.
So I don't know. I didn't read fully in depth. It was a Sports Illustrated article, so it's somewhat credible. I don't know where they got that. I could see him thriving more at Michigan just because of the legs option he presents in a Harbaugh offense, if that's still a thing next year. So he's just interesting because it sounds like he is a Big Ten school. I didn't expect those 2 to be an option.
I like your 4th. Hold on, JP. I like his 4th. That's another smart kid crossover. JP, shoot.
I was gonna say, what about Maryland for him?
That would be ideal. I mean, that's
you know what I mean.
That's a great call.
He kind of seems like a
what
Talia,
about?
But I don't know. He's screaming
I don't
Maryland
have
a little bit to me.
it on the top of my head, but what about the team he almost beat this year in Illinois? I think
I don't think Brett Bielema be mad at that.
Let's be honest here. Just put the Big Ten West on a list and name him. He's starting, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a Big Ten West school that has a cemented starter. Okay, you want to say, let's say Purdue. Hudson Card is probably the biggest name or best or most consistent name. He was awful this year. So,
and it's not
Purdue.
Iowa because you don't know what Cade's going to be like.
But the thing is with the Big Ten West comp is I just don't see he's not like a pro style quarterback. I don't think he's got that big of an arm to fit those
he needs
schools.
To be though. I think you're starting to see like Illinois get a little more with Altmaier. They stretch the offense a little bit. They got onto the edges in the run game. I mean, fuck knows with Iowa. Who knows at this point? It's not going to change, I assume. Purdue, but we just talked about Hudson Card, like Indiana.
I was gonna say I like the Maryland comp, and Indiana was the other one that just came to my mind. But they have the Jackson kid,
Minnesota,
Trace Jackson.
Minnesota just grabbed New Hampshire's quarterback. He was a 4-star. Yeah, portal wise 4-star, not out of high school, I should say.
Isn't this insane what we're talking about? Like when you guys initially said Cam Ward and he might go to the NFL, is it worth it? Could he make more money in college than what he could get as a late round draft pick or maybe a 3rd, 4th round draft pick? Like maybe he wouldn't fall that far.
More guaranteed money.
Cow. Yeah, I know.
what
a time. What a problem to have. What a problem to have.
Yeah. Well, we do know that he's taking a visit to GP said Tallahassee, and I know that he's going to Miami this weekend.
Yeah, he was in Coral Gables. Yeah, he likes the state of Florida. Maybe that's all it takes, right? What do you get 3 visits out of the portal, and he took 2 of them into the state of Florida?
It's the definition of coast to coast, there, folks. Pullman to Miami.
Talk about a difference.
He's a Houston kid.
Kids had enough.
That place would be fun.
Kid's never seen snow. He never wants to see it again. Okay, Reese, lead us. Actually, I'm sorry. You're next with our 5, and then I'll close us out.
Well, I mean, a lot of these are taken, but my number one was obviously going to be Cam Ward, just because I think we are big Cam Ward podcast, talk about the guy at the beginning of the year, the guy who's putting up Heisman numbers. If he can go to a big program, he's going to have an immediate impact. Doesn't matter where. And then went with Walter Nolan again, same reason you guys all spoke to. And then another one that I actually thought about that hasn't been said yet was Juice Wells. I know JP was big on him a couple episodes ago. He was, I think, an All-American as a freshman. Had over 1,200 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns in South Carolina. If he can go somewhere, I think I saw Crystal Ball maybe to Ole Miss.
Yep.
So if he can go somewhere, that guy's going to make an immediate impact for anybody, especially if it's Lane Kiffin. That guy can find a way to make him effective. And then I had, because you guys already mentioned him, I'll say different ones just because we can get some discrepancies in here. But 2 other quarterbacks I'll take for my last 2. I had ETN and Rocket Sanders down from him. We already talked about him. I'll say Will Howard. Guy who I don't know if he's the X factor if he goes to South Carolina. I mean, obviously that it's not going to be not South Carolina, USC. I mean, it's a step down from Caleb Williams, obviously the guy who's a Heisman winner, but he's still a proven quarterback. Guy went and won a Big 12 championship, not this year, but the year prior. Had a great coach. Guy knows how to sling the ball around. And then also Will Rogers. Guy had a pretty successful year first year that at Mississippi State. And then this year with the new head coach, they kind of took a different approach. And if that guy can go to Washington, I mean, if you look at the quarterback they have right now, is a new guy who came over from Indiana, who really wasn't a whole lot of anything over there. So if you can go to Washington and have a coach like DeBoer, who was just named the coach of the year, ding, 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 that guy can find a way to make him pretty successful too. So
great list. A lot of crossovers with Cam Ward. I'm going to add him to mine. I had him at 4 on mine just because I think, wherever he ends up, he's going to make an impact, but it also comes down to the weapons outside, who they have at the offensive line. Because like teams like Illinois, who already mentioned, their offensive line was so bad that no matter how good your quarterback is, if he's running for his life, it's not going to be successful. So there's a lot of moving parts with Cam Ward that have to fit his style of play, and good wide receivers are one. So I had him at 4. Number 1 on my list was a guy that I don't think I've heard yet, but DJU. You got to say DJU, right? Looking for his 3rd home.
I stayed for you.
Yeah, he's looking for his 3rd home, coming off a good year at Oregon State, a little bit disappointing kind of what that was built up to be, but he's going to make an impact somewhere immediately, so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. especially when they're going conference to conference. We're going to see a lot of in-conference transfers now. SEC, Big Ten being 18 teams deep. Number 2, I had Kyle McCord. And this is a personal one, I guess, now looking, because he's crystal balled to Nebraska. He's 45 minutes away from me as I sit right now. So hopefully Nebraska can grab him. I think he'd be a great fit. And I hope Ohio State fans out there, I'm not looking for a next Heisman Trophy winner. I'm looking for somebody that can take care of the football, for Christ's sake. We don't need a Heisman Trophy candidate. You guys do.
Did you hear them on Twitter today also be like, oh, will he take Fleming with him? We just don't want him. Like the kid that actually.
We'll take him.
It's like, oh my God, chill
We'll
out.
take him.
Yeah. I'll goodwill those motherfuckers. I'll take both of them. But they're on a visit together in Lincoln right now. And then 3, he's a guy who just committed. When I had put this out, he wasn't committed, but I'm going to keep him up there. Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt is a very good quarterback who was a part of a bad Michigan State team. He was a quarterback that Mel Tucker was extremely high on. Now, if Mel Tucker could get his phone away from his ear, then he could use Sam Leavitt. But he ran into a tough situation. He finds a new home in Arizona State. I think he'll be successful there. I don't want to put Jaden Daniels on blast here, but Jaden Daniels went to Arizona State, for all you folks that forgot, the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner. So let's see how they fit. And then my last one is a no-name, Xavion Sorey from Georgia. He's a linebacker. He's a 4-star recruit. He had 22 Power 5 offers going into Georgia. He goes to the back-to-back defending national champions, doesn't get the reps he wants. He's looking for a new home. Somebody's going to fill a big void at linebacker with a obviously highly touted guy, but inexperienced. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Those are my 5.
I like everybody's list. I just have one thing I'm just staring at 24/7 in random crystal balls. Do you know who is crystal balled to Maryland right now? His team's about to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl. Ooh.
How about MJ Morris from North Carolina State?
Yeah.
Him and Daquan Finn are kind of similar quarterbacks. Both of them are very dual threat. Their ability to throw the football downfield's been proven. They're young, like MJ Morris, obviously the younger version of Daquan Finn. Finn's a little bit bigger. To me, like I just spit a crystal ball out, and then I just got a replica of the guy who's a little younger, and he's crystal ball to Maryland. So it's just looking at all these. I wish they threw their offers on here a little bit quicker, but it's a portal. I bet a lot of these offers are on the table.
That's a very good point, because I feel like 95% of the offensive success that Maryland's had has ran through Tagovailoa. I don't know what you guys think, but those two are about as close that you're going to get to him at Maryland again.
Yeah.
Jake?
No, I think that's a perfect fit. Parks, I can't believe you left out your boy. I know we haven't heard about him in a while, but Grayson McCall he's still kicking in college football. He's still around. He's looking
that's
for
the old
home.
It's just money days right there.
Yeah,
man.
that ages me a bit, because God, what's it been, 4 years since that was 2020.
2020 was his freshman or sophomore
coming out
year.
party.
We were talking about him at a table in Arizona in December outside about how he was like one of the most underrated players in college football. Here we are 11 years later, it feels like.
Great college football story, that scheduled game midweek between them and BYU when they were both
awesome.
undefeated. Zach Wilson was
What will put a 2065 college football fan in a coma? Well, one time BYU was supposed to play a game, and then Coastal was, but they both got canceled. So they decided on Wednesday they'd play Saturday, and BYU flew across the country into South Carolina and played them.
And don't forget, Zach Wilson had a headband on that said "any place, any team, anytime," because BYU was in the group of 5 then.
Yeah.
Coastal was undefeated. I literally was betting Coastal every week and never losing. I bet against him because I love Zach Wilson in college, and they beat him. So Coastal was rolling then. That was a fun college football memory.
That was a good year, I thought.
That was
for
a
G5.
great year in college football. Bad year for humans, good year for college football.
Fact.
But speaking of favorite memories, let's roll into our bowl game memories. Bowl season is here. It is one of the best times of the year. Now, it's lost a lot of life here the last few years with opt-outs, transfer portal. Teams look almost completely different when they enter these games.
Mm-hmm.
However, they are beautiful in every way, shape, and form. You're never going to find an NFL game, an NBA game, any other collegiate sport with a live human mascot like we're going to find in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. So let's go with our favorite bowl game memory. Reese, lead us off. Your favorite bowl game memory. Newer college football fan that's been diving in deeper, but what do you remember?
Well, my earliest, I consider one that's the earliest for me that I can remember when I was a kid, but I think it also just like the greatest game of all time. But the Statue of Liberty when Boise State beat Oklahoma, like that's got to be on everybody's Mount Rushmore. Like I think it's got to be up there, dude. I mean, you get that the name in itself. You just say Statue of Liberty, and people like us, you're thinking, oh, Boise State, Oklahoma. Other idiots are thinking of that thing in New York. No, we think of the correct thing. But I mean, it capped off with 13-0 season. They went and beat Oklahoma. Bob Stoops and Adrian Peterson, who was a stud there. Nobody gave them a chance at all. They go in there, they do that, and then how about the running back proposing to his girlfriend on TV? Just an all-time TV moment.
Yeah, Ian Johnson. Here's a trivia question: what's the name of the quarterback that graced the cover of NCAA football the year after?
Yeah,
Zabrowski.
Yep, Zabransky.
Damn it!
That's a tough name. You're good. It wasn't Smith.
Tomato.
He got it.
People forget Boise was up 28-10 in that game too. Before I think Oklahoma rattled off like 25 straight, and there was like 18 points scored in the last like minute and a half. What a football!
And you got to mention the hook and ladder. You got to mention
the hook and ladder. Yeah, the hook and ladder. Yep.
That was the original. This team doesn't want to play, just morale based, because Oklahoma wanted to play for a national title and Boise State was happy to be there. That's where this felt like it all originated. When you're looking at bowl games, you're like, well, I don't think they really want to be here. That's where it originated, fellas. Oklahoma fell asleep and found out the tough way.
So if you have hate, give it to Oklahoma. JP, share your memory.
Yeah, I personally picked one that Iowa played in because this is vivid in my brain. So our family were pretty big.
I know where he's going.
He doesn't know how much time there's left. He doesn't know how much time there is.
Our family is pretty big, and we're massive Hawkeye fans. So we did Christmas every year in Illinois. We're meeting up for family Christmas as well as New Year's Eve. Well, on New Year's Day, Iowa plays LSU. Now this is LSU with Jamarcus Russell and a ton of big names. This is a good Iowa team with Drew Tate, and just kind of names go on and on in that game. It's all the kids are downstairs watching this game. All the parents are upstairs. There's 13 grandkids and then plus some family friends that are there. So there's 20 some kids downstairs and probably 40 adults upstairs. Right. And Drew Tate drops back and the whole Gary Dolphin call goes off. He doesn't know the game's going to end on this play, and he throws it, hits Warren Holloway. They go in for a touchdown. Everybody in the basement's like screaming and running. So there's 40 kids trying to run up the staircase to celebrate with the adults. It was electric. Tons of fun. I was like, probably eight or 9 years old. It was incredible stuff. Euphoria type stuff. Back when Capital One Bowl wins meant a lot more than they do now. And I've played in that game now 17 times, not me personally, just the school. But it, like Parks was saying, lost its zazz a little bit. But that's one I remember being like, this is a big deal to win this football game. So that's my core memory from that situation. Incredible.
That's what I was about to say, JP, is people need to show love. And you have to realize that we were doing this. And yes, our teams were involved, but we were doing this for the Capital One Bowl. Holiday
That's not a bowl anymore, right? That's not,
no,
not a sponsor, right? That's what I thought.
You know what was a great bowl that just came to mind? The Champs Sports Bowl. Bring it back. That game was awesome.
Bring it back.
Or the Russell Athletic Bowl. Great game.
Russell Athletic Bowl.
That's a great bowl game. Jake, share your memory.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I guess my favorite Iowa memory too. I guess we'll go to Pasadena and then the Rose Bowl. That's that joke just slid by everybody. That did.
No, I thought you were trying to slid by me.
Like, which one, Schaefer? Yeah. Which one?
I thought you were talking about like the 01. I was like, oh man,
the one where there really wasn't a second.
No, that was the Orange
McCaffrey
Bowl.
8 football games.
That was the Orange Bowl, Camden. The Rose Bowl was the Christian McCaffrey game. Some Hawkeye history for me. But no, actually, my favorite memory was like the Rose Bowl sunset. You know, like every time when halftime comes around, it's New Year's Day.
Great image.
Maybe you got to go back to school the next day, and it's kind of halftime. You see the sunset coming down, and most of the games don't disappoint. I mean, I'd throw that Ohio State-Utah game up there from what was that, 2 years ago now, I think. That was just a fantastic Marvin Harrison's coming out party. Like, we're going to look back on that game and be like, I mean, that was one of the greatest receivers of all time if he pans out how he's supposed to. Another great game was that Penn State USC game with was that Barkley?
Darnold
no, not Barkley. It was with
Darnold and it was Darnold Barkley.
I was thinking the other Barkley. I was thinking Matt Barkley. Saquon Barkley.
Saquon
and Darnold. Yep, correct. So
one of the blonde hair, beach haircut USC quarterbacks they had.
So like
17 of them.
You know when like you're a kid, obviously you love college football, maybe you love playing NCAA 06 or whatever, but like unless your favorite team's playing, you're probably not watching football games like we do now. But we always made it a big deal. When the Rose Bowl was on when I was a kid, that was like your eyes were on that TV every single time. So
it is in fact the granddaddy of them all. All right. I will
Parks. Let's set the stage for yours here. You're rounding it up. Is this a personal one or is this an experience one?
It has to be a personal one. I think Jake just nailed it on the head. Like when we were young, where these memories were born, we weren't as blessed as we are now, where we have 11 TVs and we love the sport even more, no matter who's playing. Because I have to go back to 09. It wasn't the last 7 years that gave it away. But I'm going all the way back to 09 for Nebraska's bowl game against Arizona. And I had actually had a little tummy bug. You know, when you're a kid and it gets cold outside, it's bowl season, you come down with a little tummy bug from the school. So I can't watch it with anybody. I'm watching it. It's me, my dog, and an empty house. My parents left. They're going to watch it with friends. Here I am, ready for Nebraska. Yep, with an elite defense to play an Arizona team, which here's another trivia question for you throwback folks.
Nick Foles.
Yeah, absolutely. That's who was playing quarterback at Arizona.
Let me win,
Nebraska shit pumped them. I mean, absolutely took it to them. It was a rainy day in San Diego. Nebraska ended up winning 33-0. Niles Paul had like a 75-yard touchdown catch, got flagged for flexing in the end zone. I can literally remember it was yesterday, but I do have an honorable mention Nebraska-wise, and it was 2 years earlier in the Cotton Bowl. Back when it was the AT&T Cotton Bowl, the elite-style Cotton Bowl.
It's Auburn.
We lost. Yes, Reese. God, yes.
Come on, Reese. Where are you coming from?
Yeah, I like this kid. I like him. So Nebraska gets beat by Auburn. We didn't even win the game, so it's not that good of a memory. But do you guys remember the old Fox presentation of the scoreboard that went meow, boom? You know what I'm talking about? That was like a robot scoreboard.
Like, there was the original Cletus.
Like, and when they scored, it would give off a sound and it would banner the team.
Yes.
That
is the best score of all time. So just the presentation of that game and my love for the AT&T Cotton Bowl, that's a good memory. Jake?
I got an honorable mention. Not personally related to anything, but I don't know why I remember this one specifically. Maybe it was the first play of the game that just caught my eye. How about DeAnthony Thomas housing the kickoff against Kansas State in the Fiesta Bowl, and he runs through the finish line at the end zone? I don't remember why, but I mean, that first play of the game, just right off the bat, took it to him. So I always like Kansas State getting run over. It's usually fun to watch.
This is a hot take.
Loves his teams. The teams he hates losing more than he loves his own team winning. It's incredible.
It feels pretty good. I love watching my rival get pumped on TV. It's a pretty good feeling.
All right, you ready for the hot take of the night? I think DeAnthony Thomas has an equal to, not greater than, equal to highlight tape as Tavon Austin. I know that one's popular, but
that's not a hot take.
I think the music changes the Tavon one, right?
Can I be honest?
He doesn't like it.
No, the Tavon Austin stuff is kind of getting overblown a little bit. Like the highlight tape.
Is it because they're in Big 12 now and you hate West Virginia too?
No, it's just everybody's go-to.
I think everybody caught on to it. It happens.
Funniest thing. It's the funniest when it's like guys making TikToks like how to show my girl like the Bible or something like that, and it's that fucking highlight tape. Like it's the funniest thing, dude.
Or when you're at a girl's house and it's the YouTube search bar and it says Tavon Austin highlight tape, and you're like, oh, somebody was here already. I'm not the first.
People forget that West Virginia team. They were scoring like 70 points a game, and they were like 5-0, and everybody was like, "This is the greatest team on earth." And then I think they went like 6-6 or 7-5 or something like that, and just completely fell off the rails.
Hey, it happens, man. Ask Washington State. But okay, that was our favorite bowl game memories. That is fun. It's always fun to look back on one of the greatest seasons. Just 4 or 5 weeks of just decent to really good college football games. And they always have something crazy going on in the background with sponsors, fights, things like that. There's a great fight. Might have been the Myrtle Beach Bowl a few years ago. Look it up. But let's move on to our favorite bowl matchup of this year. Who's playing this year? All right. There's some good bowl games out there. And you got to remember, there's a lot different looks now with opt-outs, things like that. So talk about your favorite game. Let's lead it off with Reese. Reese, tell us about your favorite bowl game of the year on paper.
I went with Oklahoma and Arizona, that matchup. When you're looking at Oklahoma, it's a different Oklahoma team than you're getting. I mean, you're losing your OC, who just is new the head coach at Mississippi State, and you're losing Dylan Gabriel, a guy we talked about who's now at Oregon. So you're kind of losing your two main guys for that offense that have made the identity it is. But I mean, you still got Venable, and it's Oklahoma, so you can bring in guys. So what are they going to be able to do with that? I think Jackson Arnold is the backup that they're going to be playing him in this game. So what are they going to be like? Because they still got guys. I mean, it's still your last football game for a lot of these players, so it still means a lot to them. So what are they able to do? And then at Arizona, it's a team was our most improved team of the year. You're going to have Afida still at the helm, and Jed Fish. Can they continue on this season and beat a team who has been a well-known name in college football? Can you kind of take that step and cap off the year with a big win? Or are they just kind of, not do that? But I got faith that this will be a very good football game. I think it'll be a little bit higher scoring too, which is why I think it'll be so interesting. But I think it's one where if this one's on and you're not watching it, you're missing out.
That's a great pick. Big 12 matchup preview here.
For future, yeah.
Let's watch Jackson Arnold against a defense that's respected. Let's go watch Fafita go against a team who also has a solid defense. Let's watch these two quarterbacks light up the board. Is there going to be a future in a couple places?
You got future Big 12 leaving
future SEC.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
but
okay,
I think
the Big 12 counts.
The Big 12 fans are going to be pulling for Arizona pretty damn
hard.
Oh yeah,
absolutely
on that one.
There's not a lot of Texas fans watching the playoff either that are from the Big 12.
We love you.
I like Reese. I like it, Reese, leading off the bowl game picks with our underrated team of the year. If you haven't listened to our Play the Fight Song Awards, it's on YouTube. Go back, watch the segment. It was very good. Let's go down to JP. JP, your favorite bowl game you're looking forward to on paper this year?
Yeah, on paper, I'm looking at North Carolina State, Kansas State. This is the Pop-Tarts Bowl. That's why I got best Pop-Tart is brown sugar cinnamon. It's not really a debate. Reese, what do you never go cheap on?
Women, cars, Pop-Tarts, and there's a fourth one.
Yeah, there is.
Toilet paper.
Come on. There you go. Yeah.
Quarterbacks.
Come on, man.
And quarterbacks.
But I'd say this one's interesting because you just watched the North Carolina State team have a weird year where Armstrong couldn't quite figure out to start the year. He gets benched for MJ Morris. MJ Morris ends up redshirting. Now he's in the portal. Kansas State-wise, Will Howard leaves. Now you're kind of looking to yourself like, hey, let's go watch our future play football too. Well, you also lost star power at the running back position. You've lost a couple other things. But how deep is this Kleiman team? How far along are they in really building themselves into a guy who is going to be top 3 or 4 programs in the new Big 12? Well, it's a good chance to figure it out because I know for a fact North Carolina State's going to be happy to be in this one. And they're no joke. Peyton Wilson on linebackers. I think he won the Budnarek Award. He is an absolute monster. It's another name we've been talking about for about 3 or 4 years, fellas. The guy's over 100 tackles. He's an absolute stud. So let's feed him to the wolves a little bit. 2 good defenses, 2 good teams, 2 good coaches. This is one that I think if it was 5 years ago, I think there's ads about this bowl game telling you to tune in when it is. There's not going to be a single ad about this game, but I want to get it on your radar because 2 programs fun to watch, 2 coaches. Again, we're looking to the future for these guys.
JP, come on. There might be an ad. You missed the biggest point. There is a live mascot. They're going to eat it.
You can eat him.
I don't quite understand it, but I get, how does that actually work?
I mean, it's just got to be like the scariest looking thing ever where it's a real Pop-Tart that they just cut a hole in and then tie it around this human. That has to be it.
Because is it a Pop-Tart with googly eyes on it maybe?
I don't know, but I got to watch these kids eat it. I'm so excited. That's going to be the coolest thing ever. It's going to dominate the
Throw them in a toaster oven.
What if there's one of each flavor and you just get to pick one?
That's a lot of fucking.
That's a lot.
Sorry, Mom. That's a lot of Pop-Tarts.
JP, I'm disagreeing with your take just to end this. Give me s'mores as the best Pop-Tart. Jake, give us your game.
Yeah, when you talk about bowl games, and we're going to get into 5 pretty good ones this weekend, it's all about who's playing. That you said that question. Who is playing in this bowl game? Well, in the Peach Bowl, you have everybody playing. Penn State versus Ole Miss. This is an awesome matchup because it's kind of 2 contrasts of styles. You have Penn State's defense against the plethora of weapons that Ole Miss brings to the table. You have both quarterbacks playing in this, and Jackson Dart and Drew Allar. You have both stud running backs playing and Quinshon Judkins and Nick Singleton. I'm really fascinated to see this, especially out of Penn State, because Penn State kind of fell off the face of the earth after that Michigan game. It was like, all right, the typical Penn State, here we go again. Well, maybe this is time to right the ship going into 2024 if you're James Franklin and company. Like, yeah, you didn't get it done this year against those two big teams, but this is a really talented team at full strength that you're going to be playing. How do you respond? Do you actually belong? And maybe this will propel you into a 12-team playoff when you maybe lose a game or two next year. So I'm fascinated with this one.
I think it's prove you belong here. Ole Miss, you won 10 games. Hey, Penn State, you've been perennial for winning 10 games, but not beating anybody, that you're not necessarily supposed to. Prove it here. Go win a football game. Keep yourself in the top 10 to close the year.
I love that one, Jake. That is probably the closest we're going to an old style bowl game where nobody opted out. So great pick. All right, to wrap mine up, I'm going to go with one on the dead opposite side, Jake. Give me A&M and Oklahoma State in the Texas Bowl. Texas A&M in shambles, has a million moving pieces right now. Most of them are players hitting the portal. They have about 15 names in there. On the other side, you have our player of the year, Ollie Gordon, who I've seen about 15 different tweets telling me that he's in the transfer portal from Ballsack Sports or the Onion Sports, and they get me. I'm like, damn, he really hit the portal. I expect him to play in this game. I expect him to go off. But as you see, Texas A&M had a walk-on team have a pretty good kickoff return, so you never know what Texas team you're going to get. I mean, you never know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an old Big 12 battles close to my heart. I like Oklahoma State to win the game, and it'll just be a fun one to watch. So that's what our favorite bowl matchups of the year on paper. This could change, obviously, after we see the result. Jake, that was probably the most unexpected pick, but good points, because that's going to be a real football game against two real teams who are fighting to stay relevant and say, hey, we're not just a middle of the pack team every year that can't finish things. So good one. All right, let's start breaking down some bowl games. Let's go into first the Myrtle Beach Bowl to lead off your Saturday at 10 a.m. The most beautiful way to lead it off is with a 6-6 matchup between Georgia Southern and Ohio. Ohio, a team with a Big 12 win this year, isn't it? So let's go in and preview this one. Jake and JP are breaking this one down for us.
I think we need to first talk that Rourke is not playing in this one. He's hit the portal for Ohio. That's a guy who had NFL aspirations to start the year and was on a lot of boards. That offense did not take off at any point in time. Now you kind of get another clash of styles. We were just talking about Ole Miss, Penn State. Well, Georgia Southern Ohio is a very similar situation. You have an Ohio team that wanted to be better offensively. They didn't quite find their footing. Now you lose your quarterback to the portal. They still went out and won 9 games, but they play defense. That's what this team does. Nobody's gone over 400 total yards against them in the year. Well, how about Georgia Southern on the other side? If you remember this a couple years ago, was a Kyle Van Treese team that came from Buffalo down to Georgia Southern and lit the world on fire. They're not as explosive as they were that year, but they are a team that can air it out and really attack, but they're not good defensively. So how do you kind of find where this game's going to go? I think Georgia Southern on normal years is an 8-9 win team in the Sun Belt. Since jumping up to FBS, and Ohio's kind of found their groove a little bit more too. So Schaefer, when you're looking at this one, like Georgia Southern, I think at an 0 for 4 November in football games, and Ohio kind of went down the stretch. And we talk about how the MAC's kind of behind everybody a little bit. How about the Sun Belt, which has been perennially pretty good this year? So how do they stack up?
Yeah, this team in Georgia Southern, compared to the rest of the Sun Belt teams, I think they're kind of behind, and we're going to get to one of those teams in just a minute. But you also have Ohio, who kind of limped to the finish line. Like, we already kind of touched on transfer portal stuff. I don't know where Curtis Rourke is really going to land, because he kind of had a
he has to be season. A bridge guy. Like, he's got to be like a Boise State needs a guy for a year, or, like a Mountain West team that's really hunting for somebody, maybe like a Fresno State. Heck, I mean, maybe he goes out and with Sean Lewis, and not that they have a connection of any kind, but he's at San Diego State. He's got to be a bridge guy.
Yep, 100%. But I expect CJ Harris to play for them. And this was a guy who took over when Rourke had that season-ending injury last year. They're not afraid to throw the ball with him. They threw it 42 times when he got hurt in that San Diego State game. So they're going to throw it a lot, because Ohio has their 2 top backs opting out for the transfer portal as well. So something to keep in mind. On the other side, you got a Georgia Southern team who relies heavily on creating turnovers. They're 5-1 when they create more than 2 turnovers a game. Like JP said, they went 0-4 for a reason in November is because they couldn't turn the ball over. 2 completely different styles. One team just wants to keep it like 17-7, and the other team direly needs to get to like 30 points in order to have a chance. So it's a great bowl. It's a sicko bowl to really start off your bowl weekend.
It's a great one to put on the ATS board to start the week.
Baby.
Let's just say that.
Yep.
I love this ATS board for this game right here.
We gotta, if we had to pick a side, I think I'm siding with. I'd take Ohio in this one.
Yeah, this line's at 3.5. I think I would go the same direction, but I really just want to take Georgia Southern in this spot. So that's probably where I'll go on the board. I'd love to see this team go a little high flying.
I'll give my pick before I throw it down to Reese, but I still have a little fume of a hate for Georgia Southern. I think people forget it's a team that rolled into Lincoln and beat Nebraska last year. I was there in person. It was awful. It was terrible. Put the end of the Scott Frost era. So thank you, Georgia Southern. But I'd like to see Ohio roll into a win. So I'll take Ohio plus the 3.5. Reese, who you got?
Fine, I'll go against the spread against all you guys again too. I'll take Georgia Southern.
Okay. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that.
Well, too bad. I'm doing it.
The race is over. Take who your heart tells you to.
No, I had some decent. I had some mild success this year. I wouldn't say great success because I was winning at one point, but not anymore. But I had some mild success going against the pack.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, we do have to give a special shout out. It's a great time to plug it. Georgia Southern's media team puts together some beautiful videos to which then we use their content to then create content for you guys, like the great video Jake made, episode 1, Bowl Bound. Check it out on our Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all that good stuff. Follow those accounts. But shout out to Georgia Southern's media team because they're one of the better in the G5 that I've seen. Would you agree, Jake?
Yeah, no, 100%. When they can actually it's crazy. You can see the difference between a G5 school and a Power 5 school with their recording and their video editing. Like most G5s might just have like this basic camera that just follows highlights. Like Georgia Southern's got the ones where you can kind of zoom in on the guy when he's making a play or if a fumble happens or something like that. Just like, I don't know, when you make 100 TikToks, you kind of notice these things as you go along.
100%. There are rankings of media teams that we could put out based upon making those videos. Georgia Southern's one of the better G5s at it. Okay, let's change the page again. Let's go down to the Cure Bowl. We're fighting for a cure in many cases in America. Well, let's go see who's fighting for the Cure Bowl. We have Miami of Ohio out of the MAC and App State out of the Sun Belt. App State, a team that we have mentioned all year, has absolute balls. Who are we going to do to break this one down? Jake, take us through App State, Miami of Ohio.
Well, JP just asked the question, like where I think the MAC is compared to the Sun Belt when we're comparing G5 schools. I said I thought Georgia Southern was the opposite of where we're seeing this because I think App has the much better athletes on the field compared to a MAC champion in Miami
MAC
of
champ.
Ohio.
Let me shout that out. That's my fault. I'm champion of the MAC conference, Miami of Ohio.
Conference. Yeah, they didn't win the.
Red Hawks.
They won the conference championship, but which surprised a lot. They were underdogs. They were 7-point underdogs, and they handled DeQuan Finn and they beat Toledo, which was impressive. This team in Miami of Ohio, similar to their counterparts in Ohio, they also want to make it ugly. They want to keep it low scoring. Gabbert got hurt in the middle of the season for them at quarterback. The backup just really hasn't been very good. So they really have to keep App under helm this week. And it's going to be interesting because we just saw App State kind of get ran over by Troy in the conference title game. That was a tough road environment. I think Troy, I underestimated. They have one of the best defenses in all of G5. So I think it's an outlier because App's been playing really good football in November, and it's thanks to Joey Aguilar. Expect this team to really just go out and throw the ball all around the field and try to have Miami of Ohio stop them. I think that's really what it comes down to. Miami of Ohio ranks 27th in total defense. So they're not Troy, but they're not far off. So I like we've seen a lot of these bowl games when we talk about Ole Miss, Penn State. We just talked about Georgia, Southern, and Ohio. Another contrast of styles between these two teams, and I think that's what makes this matchup fascinating.
It is a very good one. Let's go around, give our picks. Reese, give us your pick first.
Just give me the Red Hawks, dude. They won me some points this year. I can't go away from it. Give me the Red Hawks.
I love that. JP, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take App here. I think this is a little more of an aggressive offense than you're getting at Georgia Southern that Ohio has to play. I think Ohio's no joke, no slouch of a defense, but this is way too high flying, I think, and I don't think you're getting a disappointed App team to be in this spot. So I'll take App.
Yeah, it's a it's a tale of two different tapes, I would say. You got Appalachian State, a team who underperformed for kind of where they're usually at as a football program, I would say. I mean, they had their big wins here and there. And you have Miami of Ohio, a conference champion, or at least end of the season game conference champion, who's the highest of highs, and maybe a pissed off Appalachian State team. Give me a pissed off Appalachian State team all day to cover the 6.5. Give me App State. Okay, let's move on to the next.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Shafe, you gonna do it too?
Jake.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Jake gave.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Jake. I didn't give it originally. Nope, all good. I'm gonna take App here. That line keeps moving, by the way. I think it opened up at App like 5.5. Don't be surprised if it jumps to 7 on Saturday.
We want it under a touchdown, fellas. Everybody wants it under a touchdown.
Yeah, you got to get it under a touchdown. You never know in these bowl games. Weird things happen. Okay, let's jump to the next one. Let's go to the New Mexico Bowl, a home game for the New Mexico State Aggies, who, as a team who upset Auburn on the road this year, maybe probably the biggest G5 win of the season in dominant fashion. On the other side, you have a Fresno State team who started off the year hot with a win at Purdue, kind of had their weird losses here and there, and they find themselves in the New Mexico Bowl on the opening Saturday of bowl season. I believe JP is taking us through this one. No. Nobody marked it down, so we're just going to go round table style, give our pick. Nobody's interested in this game.
I can help out a little bit prior.
Okay. JP, give us a little insight on it.
I think right here you need to look at a New Mexico State team that really went to war when they went and played Liberty in that Conference USA title game. Like, that was a team that was not backing down. That Liberty team's good. They're solid. But you started to learn that New Mexico State didn't quite have the defense that was going to keep them around in that one, especially with how high flying Liberty is. Well, here's another thing for New Mexico State. They're going to want to run the football. They're going to get explosive that way, but they're going to need Pavia to be healthy. I don't know what his situation is. It's questionable right now. I think if he kind of, as the week goes on, we'll know more. It is only Tuesday. I'm sure we won't know until Thursday for the kid. But Fresno State kind of limped down the side. Like, they started 6-1. They ended the year, I believe, 8-4. And their head coach is having health issues. He's not coaching in this one. Where do you kind of see things going? This is a pumped up New Mexico State team to play in this football game. This is exactly where in bowl season I take the team who's happy to be there. Jerry Kill has this team ready to go. If Pavia's healthy, I think that's where you go in this situation. So Fresno State, we just keep the wheels on here. Otherwise, you might get run out of the building just based on adrenaline alone.
Jake, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take New Mexico State. I think it was encouraging that we know Liberty doesn't have a very good defense, but I thought it was encouraging at least that they were willing to kind of go toe for toe, like JP said. And they were able to keep up for pretty much like 50 to 55 minutes of that game. If Pavia is playing, it's such a short number. I don't know enough about Fresno State. I would take New Mexico State here.
Reese, who you got?
I'm also I'll take New Mexico State as well. I think like JP just said, they're a fired up team to be there. I know at the beginning of the year, if they thought they were going to be in this position, and you had the year they had, go play for a conference championship, and you go beat an Auburn team. They're playing good football at the end of the year, so I'll take them in the spot.
I feel like this is the NAIA women's volleyball tournament or basketball tournament, and they just get an automatic bid to the Mexico Bowl. That's the way it should be anyway. But when you take a look at Fresno State, I do have to give a shout out. Back in week 1, 7 years ago, I gave a helmet sticker out to Eric Brooks, who is an elite wide receiver for Fresno State. Is he going to be, turning the page and putting on one more great performance for his unhealthy coach? I don't think so. I think New Mexico State, I'm going to take them too. Give me the complete sweep on the board. It's just too hot. They're too high right now, and they're playing at home. Just got to take a quick drive over to the field, whoop up on some Bulldog ass, and wrap up the New Mexico Bowl. So I like that from the gang. We sweep the board on that one. All right, let's change the page. We got another bowl game to cover, and that's the Independence Bowl. Cal, with a high-flying offense who've competed in multiple games this year, the most under-the-radar competitive team that really wasn't expected to be in Cal. And then you have Texas Tech, a team riddled with injury, who kind of found themselves in a lost spot, a team that a lot of us were high on in the preseason, finding themselves in the Independence Bowl on opening bowl weekend. Who we got? And I believe Jake, take us through Texas Tech, the Big 12. Take us through the Big 12, the Big 12 expert.
It's a Big 12 team. Come on, Parks. I got you on this one. At least for this game, outside of maybe some guys who are unhappy with their situation or playing time, you're going to get pretty much a full roster from both of these teams. So I think that's really exciting because you just got to take advantage of any of those bowl games that you can get. For me, it comes down to the running back position in this game. You have Tajay Brooks, who's coming back for Texas Tech. He's the workhorse for them. I'm thinking he's going to be at least probably a top 3 running back in the new Big 12 next year. And on the other side, Jaden Knotts rushed for over 1,200 yards for Cal. Kind of really two similar teams. They both had quarterbacks step up in the middle of the season. Baron Morton is 5-1 as the starter for Texas Tech. And the other side, you have Fernando Mendoza, who I think started 0-3 or 0-4 when he took over the reins at Cal, but he's won 3 in a row as a starter heading into this game. I see it as kind of two opposite teams, though, for their perspective of being in this bowl game. Both are 6-6, but let me ask you something. If you'd ask Cal at the beginning of the year, hey, you're going to be 6-6, you pretty happy with that? I'm pretty sure Cal would have been like, hell yeah.
Yep.
Yes, Texas Tech. Hey, you're going to end the year 6-6. You going to be pretty happy about that? I don't think as much. I think that was a team that a lot of people had high aspirations on. So Cal ranks 110th at 32 points per game. I think that this is a downgrade in competition. I think Texas Tech has seen a lot of good teams this year. The one common opponent they have is Oregon. Cal lost to Oregon 63-14, and Texas Tech gave them a run for their money. No, it was very, very earlier in the year, but give me Texas Tech in this situation. Cal's not a very good football team.
There it is, the Big 12 homer pick. JP, who you got in this one?
Yeah, I think it's going to be high flying. I think 57.5 is the number I see over under. This game might end in the 70s because, Texas Tech can score. Cal has shown the ability to score on defenses that aren't great. But what does Cal not do? Defend the pass. And here comes Tech and their ability to throw a football. So I'll take Tech in this situation. I'd love to see Cal win a bowl game. Don't get me wrong, but I just think Tech right here is a better team.
All right, JP, on the over and Tech. Reese, who you got?
I'm also going to go with the Red Raiders. You mentioned Cal not being very good defensively. They've given up 50 points to 4 of the 9 teams in the Pac-12 this year. And then also in 2 of those other games, they gave up 34 points. They're not very good defensively. And then you mentioned how good Tech's running back is, Taj Brooks. I think they'll just dominate the line of scrimmage. I think Tech will be able to take it to them. I don't know if they'll get way ahead and blow them out of the water, but I think it's just a spot where Tech's just a better team. I was high on them at the beginning of the year, and they just got housed by Texas. Remember my dark horse pick? My under the radar game for the year was going to be Texas Tech to end the year, and that was 57-7. So good call by that one, Reese. But I'll take the Red Raiders here.
Funny you mentioned a bad take because I'll mention one myself. Texas Tech was my pick to finish in the top 10, the team to be outside of the top 10 to finish it at the end of the year. And this was back in our preseason previews. So for my pride play, give me Texas Tech to win the damn Independence Bowl. They don't want to be there, but too much talent in a better, I would say, overall more competitive conference where they've seen better talent across the board. Give me Texas Tech to win the Independence Bowl. All right. Change the page. Last bowl game to cover, UCLA, Boise State. Jake, the under-the-radar Boise State fan, and a UCLA team that's without a quarterback. What kind of game are we going to get? JP, take us through it.
Yeah, this is another one where you're kind of looking at UCLA after we just talked about the Cal team that beat them pretty handily on week 14 final regular season game. Now you look at Boise State on the flip side, they get the guy that they really wanted to hire. They hire from within. They're happy with that. Everybody really got up for that Mountain West title game and played well. But now Taylor Green hit the portal and now he's an Arkansas Razorback, right? So where are they going to go? The Madsen kid's been all right in Green's absence and when he's gotten snaps. You look at UCLA and they've played 3 different quarterbacks. There's no Dante Moore. He's in the portal. You're going to have to play Garbers or Schlee. If I'm being honest with you, neither one of those guys really impresses me. And Boise State, I think, kind of had this, start to the year where you didn't expect them to win great games because they were playing Washington, another tough competition. UCF beat them early, and then they kind of came back up and then back down. And then I think they're back on the upswing here. It's been a roller coaster year. To basically shorten that whole word sludge up right there, it's been a roller coaster year for Boise State. But anytime a team like this gets a chance to play a Pac-12 team or play a Power 5 team, I think they're licking their chops. And so I'm going to go Boise State here. I think plus the number is smart, but I think they win this one outright. This is still a UCLA team that can play really good defense. How bought in are you, though? When you go get pumped like that by Cal, who's terrible defensively, and put up 7, and then you go up 33 to them. And I know Cal scored points on people this year, but that's your bread and butter if you're Chip Kelly this year is with the defense, and now they haven't been doing it. So whether Taylor Green or no Taylor Green, as we said, he's gone. I think Boise State's a team to take here, just based on what I'm seeing from the coaching staff, the vibe I get from the players, and the situation that calls for it. So I'll take Boise State here.
JP on the Broncos. Let's go down to Reese. Reese, who you got in this one?
That's a good point, JP. I think UCLA's defense is pretty solid. They did lose their DC, though. I mean, I think Danton Lynn's his name. I believe they did lose Danton Lynn. He did go to USC. So I think you lose that aspect of it as well, too. Had to come a little closer there.
Yeah, remind the kid he sat
my
back.
bad.
His mic,
my bad.
his mic didn't move with him.
Hey, lean with it. Rock with it. Lean with it. Whatever. But I think it's a spot, too, where I think it's a spot where Boise State, you lose your quarterback, guy goes in the portal, don't really know what's going on there, but you have your new head coach, and you're playing a little bit better. I'll take the Broncos in this spot too. I think plus the points is a good spot just because you don't really know what UCLA is going to be like. You don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Still got their weapons, but they got to find who their guy is going to be. So,
all right, there's another one. Jake, who you got in the LA Bowl? By the way, I noticed we didn't list any sponsors on these. Is this still the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl? You guys remember that?
I believe it's something else. It's not that one anymore, though.
Yeah, Jimmy, get the hell out of here. All right, Jake, give us a pick.
Yeah, when you look at this game, it's definitely a game of like who actually wants to be there. UCLA, you're playing in town. Are you just going to be screwing off all week and not having a good time? Or you have Boise, who's having an awesome vacation going from Boise, Idaho to LA. Maybe they're having a little bit too much fun. I don't think the quarterbacks are really going to be that big of a difference in this game because Garbers is not very good. And Taylor Green's been average all year, even though he's gone. So I look at the running backs and you look at Ashton Jeanty and George Alani for a 1-2 punch at Boise, who's been really good. And it's said that Carson Steele has not been practicing this week for UCLA. So something to keep in mind. I think Boise wants it more for sure. And I think they could win this outright. No question.
I hate to be this guy, but just piggybacking off of your point, not only that, but what does this mean for recruiting purposes for these teams? If you're UCLA, you're playing at home. I'd love to give you a home field advantage. Just kidding. Nobody comes to your games anyway. It doesn't matter how close the stadium is, how far away it is. No one's going. Then you have Boise, a team where beating UCLA, whether or not it's in the LA Bowl, means something for recruiting, for just the general feeling of the school. So I like Boise in the spot just because it means more to them. You have a team to beat a now Big Ten UCLA team. It just means more for Boise. And it's a team that if I'm cheering for Boise. If I'm a fan, you want Boise to win this game, right? I mean, unless you're a UCLA fan, you'd be like, all right, I'd rather see them be good again because they're a part of the and just one of those 5 teams. Jake, you got something?
Well, I was just going to say, I know it has nothing to do with this year's game, but look at the LA Bowl last year. And it was, I don't know if you guys remember, it was Oregon State versus Florida. And Florida was on. Everybody was opting out. They had no business in wanting to be there. And Oregon State came out and just whooped them. I think that was, am I correct on that? That was the LA Bowl, wasn't it? Or am I mistaking that one?
I'm not going to remember the name of the bowl game, probably not, but I can remember the game. That game.
Now I have to look it up because I feel like
it could have been. I mean, look up Jimmy Kimmel. He's probably there. Jimmy Kimmel, LA Bowl. What are the other sponsors why Jake finds that? I mean, the Independence Bowl, New Mexico
There is
Bowl.
a avocados from Mexico.
Is it avocados from New Mexico Bowl?
I'm pretty sure it's avocados.
That would be electric. Avocados. I can't remember which one's which. Everybody knows that.
I didn't put the sponsors in there because they're not sponsors of us, so they don't get it.
Blabalardos.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. They're not, except for I put one. I mean, we have 2 of them in our little quips underneath our name. I shouted out Scooter's Coffee, which will break down that game.
It's not the avocados from New Mexico Bowl. It's
avocados
from Mexico Cure Bowl.
Okay.
Is Leta New Mexico Bowl? I don't know what Leta is. And then this one is
like milk.
What we're talking about is Starco brands.
I got your answer. Two different things. So the LA Bowl last year, this will tell the tale for this year if you're looking to bet something. Fresno State whooped Washington State 29-6. So I was wrong there. It was the Las Vegas Bowl that Oregon State whooped on Florida. But I think
2 different losses, man.
2 different losses, but I think both of those had it factors of wanting to be there. You had an Oregon State team who wanted to whoop on Florida and want to be at that Las Vegas Bowl. And hey, the Mountain West team whooped on the Pac-12 team last year. So I think they're kind of setting up the Pac-12 for failure this year.
Very good. Way to support our claims with a late edition. But all right, that's it. We previewed a ton of bowl games. There are a couple more that we're not going to be able to talk to you for before the games happen. But watch them. They're good football games. Appreciate bowl season for what it is. I don't know if we're going to have this going in the future. God knows with how much this sport is changing. So appreciate it. Speaking of appreciation, we appreciate you. Follow us on all the platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it. Give us a follow. Follow our content. We have some great video content coming from Jake. JP's working hard on the graphics. I'm working hard on the graphics. Reese is killing Facebook. He's back. He's alive. He's brought the account back. We're near 100 on that one. We're well over 100 everywhere else. We appreciate you joining us.
Wait, no big deal.
Coach Jung liked the video.
Coach Jung liked the video.
Aaron Jung, if you, by God's chance, are listening to this, I love you. I don't look like a rooster yet. Thank you for joining us. Boys, anything before we sign out?
Hey, shout out Jacksonville State, Louisiana. That's the R&L Carriers Bowl we didn't get to, but hey, that's the other one.
And the celebration bowl.
And the HBCU national title, correct. I think Howard at 6-5 is one of the worst teams we've had in that game in a long time. But hey, let's have a great weekend, fellas.
Bowl season's electric. Enjoy it. We love you. Jake, take us away.
Play it.